Look at this piece of art. I will never understand the value behind it, but this guy will. The same applies to many other pieces of art, whether it be paintings, sculptures, or whatever else. However, there is a piece of art that this guy will never understand. The art of pitch framing. Baseball is more than just trying to hit home runs and striking out the batter. It's a mental game. This game is full of intricacies. Have you ever seen John Boy breaking down little intricate pieces of a game? I never knew how easy it can be for batters to recognize that a pitcher is tipping his pitches. But for just a regular viewer like myself, I would never be able to notice. These intricacies have a lot of power on not just a single at-bat, but for a whole game. This isn't just for tipping pitches. This also deals with pitch framing. If you don't know what pitch framing is, it's the act of fooling the umpire into calling a borderline strike call with the help of subtle movement by the catcher. Defensive catchers have kept their value in the league because of their ability behind the plate, which includes the ability to frame pitches. However, despite how subtle a framed pitch can be, the action of framing pitches also has its own intricacies that only the best catchers are able to do. Austin Hedges is one of the best defensive catchers in the league, while simultaneously being one of the worst hitters in the league. I feel like I've seen this somewhere. Today I want to talk about not only the art of pitch framing, but I also want to showcase the value that defensive catchers bring to a team. So let's call it the art behind defensive catching. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about the foundations of pitch framing. This section contains information I learned from a video by MGH Baseball. The link to the video will be in the description. How the home plate umpire positions himself behind home plate will have an impact on whether the catcher can accurately frame a pitch. Umpires are typically positioned in the slot, meaning instead of standing right behind the catcher, they stand to one side of the catcher. This is the best way to achieve a consistent strike zone during a game. So, say a right-handed pitcher is facing a right-handed batter. The catcher will not be able to frame an inside pitch if the umpire is standing between the batter and catcher, as the umpire has a clear view of this pitch, so there is no point to try and frame it. However, if the pitch is on the other side of the plate, as seen here with Buster Posey, there will be a better chance to fool the umpire. Look at this video of Jorge Alfaro beautifully framing a low pitch for the strikeout. Now that is true art. The batter, Tyler Flowers, would actually return the favor to Alfaro in his next at-bat. Let's look at some more subtleties behind pitch framing. Success of a framed pitch is easily attributed to how the catcher positions himself before the pitch. Notice how on this pitch, Buster Posey sets up higher than normal. Now look at what Posey does. He is about to catch the ball higher than where the pitch is, and at the last moment, he catches it lower, giving the illusion that the ball was caught lower than it really was. He also knew that the movement of the pitch would bring the pitch back into the strike zone, leaving no doubt in the umpire's mind that this was a strike. Let's look at another example. This time, it will be Tyler Flowers. In this at-bat, the umpire is standing in the slot between the catcher and batter, so the inside pitch is unavailable. So Tyler Flowers calls for a fastball, but look at what he's doing. He is not setting his whole body on the outside part of the plate, just his top half. His legs are still in the middle of the box. So when the pitcher makes the pitch, Flowers leans back towards the middle of the plate to make that pitch look like it went straight down the middle. Now you may be saying that that pitch would be a called strike anyway because it was a good pitch, which is a good point, but I think this is still an example of pitch framing. Umpires miss calls all the time, so you need to put yourself in the best position possible to get that strike call. Framing the pitch does not necessarily mean you are turning a ball into a strike. It means you are framing the pitch in the best way possible. So you're turning a pitch that kind of looks like a strike into a pitch that's certainly a strike. And just for the fun of it, let's look at one more example. Here is one of the most common instances of pitch framing, displayed by Yadier Molina. For this pitch, Molina is setting up for a low fastball. He sets up on the outside part of the plate as his glove faces downward. When the pitch comes, he catches the ball towards the center of the plate to ensure that this corner pitch is called. Just think about it. If he sets up towards the middle of the plate and catches the ball by facing his glove outwards or away from the plate, it would make the chances of that pitch being called a strike less likely, even though the ball is being caught in the same place. Perception for the umpire is everything. The ball and glove needs to face towards the center of the plate. And that's what pitch framing is. It's not some new phenomenon. What is new is that with the introduction of StatCast and other sites like Baseball Prospectus, defensive catching can now be measured statistically, rather than just passing an eye test. Now, let's talk about the statistical effectiveness of pitch framing. Not only has the introduction of defensive catching stats shown the rise of pitch framing, but it has also shown why the rate of strikeouts is rising around the league. Since the end of 2003, which could be attributed as the end of the steroid era, the rate of strikeouts has steadily increased. In this case, I am showing strikeouts per 9. The effectiveness of pitch framing has certainly played a part. Let's look at the strike zone model. I will say that this model was made in 2014, but I can't imagine it would be much different today, especially as strikeout numbers are rising. As you can see, many pitches that are on the outside of the zone are being called strikes, and this is due to the effectiveness of pitch framing, which has played a part in the rise of the league's strikeout rate. Baseball Prospectus made a model to break down a specific pitch in a given location in a specific count to determine the value of a catcher's framing. This model is known as RPM. Now let's look at this chart. This shows how many potential runs that a good piece of pitch framing could save. Noticeably, the rate is at its highest on an 0-2 count, saving up to 0.63 runs from a good piece of framing. Catchers get limited chances to frame a pitch on an 0-2 count, but they could save up to 50 runs a year doing so, which is more than what other position players can say. Before we move on to Austin Hedges, let's look at the historical leaderboards of defensive catching using this RPM model, just so we have a basis of when we talk about Hedges. I have found a few recurring names at the top of defensive catching leaderboards. Here are those guys, and I'll throw in Jeff Mathis just because he's relevant. Let's compare this stat, framing runs. This stat measures how many runs have been saved by the use of framing. To make a fair comparison, I will be finding the average amount of framing runs per game, as each of these players have played differing amounts of games. So I will divide each player's total framing runs by their total amount of games played. Now let's put Hedges into the mix. As you can see, only Jose Molina has a higher average than Hedges. Now I want to introduce you to a stat known as fielded runs above average. It's basically a way to visualize defensive value at a particular position on a play-by-play basis. Here are the results when you divide a player's total FRAA by the amount of games played in their career. This time, Hedges leads the pack. Are these averages flawed? Possibly. It's important to take these calculations with a grain of salt. Still, I think it's a telling representation of Hedges' value at the catcher position in his short MLB career. And Austin Hedges is not just a master of pitch framing, he is also the complete defensive catcher.
How's this, Squidward?
It's beautiful.
Listen to how he prepares with his pitchers.
I think for me it starts in the clubhouse. I think the more I get to know the guys on a personal level, then it's all easy out on the field because I just know who they are and how they tick. So whatever I'm trying to do, well, first of all, if I know one of my pitcher's cues, so like say like a guy likes to land a curveball like 0-0 for a strike, and he tends to bounce it, and his cue is he wants to throw it at my mask, so I know that. I'll give him a little target at the mask, which would look weird, like how many times you've given a high target on a curveball, but it reminds him that's his mental cue. I got to throw it at your mask. Now he lands it. Now he gets strike one. So
Show me how you will put the glove. We want a fastball away.
if I want a fastball away, I'll give my sign. I'll kind of flash him a good target first, and then get in here. I'll probably, like, if it's like one strike, I'll probably split the black and give him a nice
So
slow
if it's
target.
coming in, you just want to be as
I just
quiet
want to
as
be
you
as quiet
can.
as possible. I want and then when I'm receiving, I want the umpire to see me receive every pitch the same way. If he sees you start you can catch a ball really well, but if it looks like you're working for it, he can tell that you had to work for it. If you have to work for it, it shouldn't be a strike.
Of course, other catchers are doing the same thing Hedges is doing, but clearly Hedges is one of the best in the league at getting the best out of his pitchers. Look at these stats from Hedges. In 2017 and 2019, Hedges ranked first in FRAA. In 2017, he ranked third in runs from extra strikes, and in 2019, he ranked first. This stat essentially shows how many runs were saved from extra strike calls due to pitch framing. In 2017, Hedges ranked fourth in strike rate, and in 2019, he ranked first. And strike rate is essentially what it sounds like, the rate of strikes called. Before I end the video, I have to talk about the elephant in the room. The future of defensive catching is in jeopardy as robot umpires are coming. I like to think that this is what Austin Hedges' reaction is when he hears about robot umpires.
How about this one? I call it bold and brash. More like belongs in the trash.
So right now, the technology is in early testing stages in the minor leagues. This is what the technology is. A radar system known as TrackMan determines if a pitch is a ball or strike. The umpire wears an earpiece and relays this call. I'm personally conflicted on how to feel about this. You are taking out a massive part of the game. Sure, regular umpires make mistakes, some more than others, but it just feels wrong to take out such a strategic part of the game. Of course, catchers still will have to be able to play adequate defense and be able to stop base runners, but I just feel like something will be missing from the sport. Like I said, I don't know how to feel about this new technology. So right now, let's just enjoy these little moments in the game of baseball. Pitch framing is an art, and the catcher is the artist. The catcher paints a picture for the umpire, and it's up to the umpire to value the piece of art in front of him. Austin Hedges is one of the best defensive catchers in the league today, and will be for years to come. He is currently helping a young Padres pitching staff find their way, and it will be fun to see what forms of trickery Hedges will be able to pull off this season. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.